And then I was like, okay, that'll be like, maybe during the day in the Philippines. When I wake up the next morning, I'll check and see how many views I have. This is going to be, my next big thing. And then I posted another one and it got like 50,000 views. And by the time I got to the fifth one, I believe it was, so I would do that after work and I would do that on the weekends. And when I realized that there was demand for that on TikTok is when I started doing it on YouTube. You do content for a while and you realize that, you have to learn a lot of skills. Especially at the beginning, you have to know a lot about, like, it's interesting to go to a country where you speak the language, but you've never been there. Yeah, that's definitely the more like Filipino terminology. Everyone is like blog or blogger. Vlogger ka ba? Vlogger ka ba? And I got this email back from Ryan and I was like, oh my God, Ryan just responded to me. We're going to do a collaboration. I was like so excited.
Crazy. Who is Jared Hartmann, or Kuya Jared, as our Filipino brothers and sisters like to call you?
Yeah. Who am I? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a broad question. I guess it depends kind of how you define it. I'm just a guy.
I don't like to define it. I want you to take it as broad as you want, or as niche as you want.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the context of where we are right now, I'm also a content creator. It's probably one of the most relevant definitions for the people that might be watching this. I'm a Canadian. I was born and raised just outside Calgary in Western Canada. And yeah, I got started making content a couple of years ago, and now I'm a full-time creator, mostly making content for a Filipino audience.
Nice. And that's how we first met. Is one of your followers hit me up and was like, you should do content with Jared Hartmann, and that's how we got to know each other. So you mentioned you were born and raised in Canada. Like, were you around like a lot of like Filipinos growing up, or not really?
I mean, when I was growing up, like when I was really young, not as much. But as I got older, I got more and more connected with the Filipino community. So, like, I grew up in a very small town with just a few thousand people. So it wasn't the most diverse place, like ethnically, as you can imagine. I mean, how diverse can it be with 5,000 people?
Yeah.
I mean, that being said, now in more recent times, it actually does have some Filipinos. We got some like more chain stores that came in, and that brought opportunities for employment, and it brought in different people from the cities. It's still not a very big place, but it is a little bit more diverse. I would say like my first interaction, well, I remember in like high school, kind of maybe a little bit younger, I did meet one Filipino family that lived kind of on a farm. And that was maybe my very first interaction with Filipinos, but I was a kid, and so I didn't even really know what the Philippines meant, I would say like my first like real exposure to Filipino culture was when I was about 17. I started working at a grocery store in just one town over, and there was tons of Filipinos there. Like I don't know, maybe like I usually say it was like half the employees were Filipino. Maybe it wasn't quite that high. I don't know. But like in every department, there was like Filipino people. And so I started talking to them, and but I didn't know anything about the Philippines, man. Like when I started talking to them, I was like, I don't know, where is the Philippines? I don't know where that is. And I kind of made some of the same observations that a lot of people make, where they're like, hey, why is it that they're Asian, but everyone's got like Spanish names? Like I was working with like Jose and Eduardo and Teresa, and I'm like, what's going on? Like I thought the Philippines was in Asia.
I'm probably the only one that doesn't have a last name with that, a Spanish last name. But that's because exactly. You already know. And if anyone watched your or my episode in your channel, I'm half Emirati, so that's where the non-Spanish last name came from.
Yeah, you're kind of the exception to the rule, I guess.
So you mentioned earlier. So when I asked you who is Jared, the first thing that popped in your head was content creator, and that's why I like to keep that question open-ended, because I want you to take it as it is, and I want to hear what's the first thing that comes to your mind. So how did you get into YouTube, content creation in general? How did you get started with that?
how did I get started into content creation? I was like always looking for kind of an alternative job, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a lot of people, I worked traditional jobs, like the one I was describing where I met, you know, Filipino people, like just like working a regular, like kind of 9 to 5 job, having a boss. And I always felt like I didn't belong in those environments. Like I wanted to do something where I had a little bit more control over what my schedule looked like. Mm-hmm. And so I tried a bunch of different things. I started off by pursuing graphic design. And so I wanted to do that freelance so I could work from home, work remotely, do something kind of creative. And then I ended up working with some like YouTubers doing that actually. Like I worked for one guy and I did all of his thumbnails for a year and a half. And I also worked with a guy more locally from Calgary and I did some of his content. Like I edited some of his YouTube videos. I made some thumbnails. I managed his Facebook page, made some content for his Instagram and did stuff like that. And that was pretty cool. That was kind of like my first taste of doing things that was related to content. I tried to do an apparel brand as well. And so from there, I started making my own content to promote this apparel brand that I was trying to get off the ground. So I like made some TikToks about it and whatever. But like in the back of my mind, like I've always been passionate about languages, right? And so when it came to the content that I was consuming myself, a lot of it was like language related stuff. And I would see people making videos on Ome TV and on Omegle. You know, like Ryan Hale, for example, is a really good example of that. He like makes tons of videos on there. And I would watch people make these videos and I was like, hey, well, you know, like when I have free time, I like to use Ome TV to practice languages. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's a cool way to like, you know, meet people from different countries and not get rusty with foreign languages and stuff. So I was like, well, why don't I just record that? And then maybe I could make content that looks like that, you know? And so that's really how I started. I just like went on. I think I recorded like 5 conversations. Obviously, like at that point, I'd been speaking Tagalog for like 8 years, and so I knew how people reacted to it. Like it wasn't a mystery. Like
this white guy speaking Tagalog.
Yeah, it's like no one ever assumes that I speak it, and so they're always surprised. And so I was like, yeah, I'll just post those reactions. And so I recorded like 5 videos. And then I like edited them and I like was going to post them. And I kind of ranked them in order of like which ones I thought were the best ones and which ones were like, maybe this one isn't quite as good. And I started with the first one. And so I posted it in the evening in Canada because like the time change is so crazy, right? Between North America and the Philippines.
Flip-flopped.
It's like flip-flop completely. So I posted it in the evening or at night before I went to bed. And then I was like, okay, that'll be like, you know, maybe during the day in the Philippines. When I wake up the next morning, I'll check and see how many views I have. This is going to be, you know, my next big thing or whatever. So I like edited this video of me talking to this guy. It was a really good reaction. I like, you know, put it up there, went to sleep, woke up the next day. I'm like, okay, let's see what we're working with. And it was literally 0 views. Like literally not even one person watched it.
The pain of starting out content creation. I feel that. Oh my God.
I might have made a mistake here, you know, like I don't know if this is going to work. But I was like, hey, I got, you know, 4 other videos, so I might as well just upload them. But what am I going to do with them, right? So then I uploaded the next one, and I think it got like maybe like 2,000 views. And I was like, okay, that's all right. It's something.
Wow.
And then I posted another one. Like this is all on TikTok, right? They're just shorts. I posted another one, and it got like 10,000 views. And then I posted another one and it got like 50,000 views. And by the time I got to the 5th one, I believe it was like maybe not right away, but that 5th video ended up getting like millions of views.
Wow. I didn't know that about you. You started on TikTok?
I thought that was the very first platform that I made content on, was just TikTok.
Do you still make content for TikTok?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And is it still as successable as your YouTube?
I mean, it's different, right? Because it's short form content. So it's like, it's a little bit harder to compare it because it's not really the same thing. But
true.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I post the same short form content on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok and on YouTube. So like, yeah, sometimes it does really well on one platform and not as well on another one. It kind of just depends. But no, TikTok has been consistent for me like since the very beginning.
Man, you're kind of lucky with that, because that's like a lot of people struggle with it. I'm still sort of struggling. I'm not as much as when I started, is finding that niche of what to start. A lot of people struggle with that. They know they want to do YouTube. They know they want to do content creation, but they don't know what niche to go in. And you just like, you went with that. You like languages, which I love too. But I don't see it now as something that I want to do content creation now. But like for you did that and that popped off right away.
I mean,
for me, it was like zero still.
Yeah, I guess it's like I was in some ways I was just like
right place,
focusing,
right time.
Yeah, and I guess I was focusing on the thing that I had that would draw the most attention as well. Like, it's a pretty good formula, you know. Like making content online, it's a competitive market. So when you can put yourself in a smaller category, I think it's easier to draw attention. And so there's a huge category of like language content, and there's a huge category of like Filipino content. But in terms of like foreigners speaking Tagalog, that's a pretty small group. And so immediately I have less competitors, right?
Yep. How do you, so now you've been doing this how long now, the YouTube?
2 years.
2 years only. Wow.
Yeah.
And so now, like I imagine before, so you had those 4 videos or 5 videos all stacked to post. Do you have like, how do you put out content now? How do you get ideas? Do you just type up a bunch of ideas and try it out, or do you validate it somehow? Like, how do you do
well, I guess to be clear about that, I also need to think about what kind of content I'm making, right? Like I have different kind of, I don't, maybe genres is the word, maybe categories, I don't know, different types of uploads.
Stuff
so like
under the umbrella, yeah.
Yeah, so like I started just on Omegle. Like that's all my videos was Omegle and Ome TV. So it was just a compilation. Like the shorts were just like the 1 minute interaction with me and a stranger. And then the long form videos were just, you know, a longer version of that, but I would put like several of them together to make like a 10-minute video. And so I did that for a long time. Like maybe the first year was like 90% just doing that. So for that, you don't really need to come up with ideas. Like you just go on Omegle and just talk to people, right?
Wow.
And either you'll have a good reaction or you won't. Like, and so I was doing that when I was still working like a regular job, right? And so I would do that after work, and I would do that on the weekends. And when I realized that there was demand for that on TikTok is when I started doing it on YouTube. And then I branched off from there. So YouTube was the second one. Then the third one was Facebook. Then the fourth one was Instagram. So every time I got a new platform, I had a backlog of videos that hadn't been uploaded on that platform, right? So then it was like, that's like doing content creation on easy mode. If you have 6 months of content banked, and then you open a new profile, you just schedule it.
So it doesn't really, the dates don't match. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't match because you had all these content banked. The dates don't match, but it doesn't really matter, right? It's just because you're pushing out content.
The only place that they would match would be on YouTube long form and TikTok, like TikTok short form.
Okay,
everything else is after. Yeah.
Wow.
Like I'm uploading YouTube shorts now that I recorded 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. Right.
Wow.
But they're not. But my videos aren't related to a certain chronological order, really. Right. They're about the unique interaction between people more than anything, and so they don't. The only thing that ages is the equipment that I use. Like if you look at my old videos, I have like a worse mic, I have a worse camera, like that. Like my editing has probably gotten a little bit better too. So like you can see that, but in terms of the content itself, the idea doesn't age.
I saw your post on like looking for a video editor. I didn't know that you, I guess when you posted that, I was like, wait, yeah, he did tell me on our interview that he edits all his videos. So up until this point, you've been editing all your videos. What made you think, okay, now's the time to get a video editor?
Yeah, I'm looking for an editor now. And to be transparent, I don't know if I'll, find someone that I'll continue working with or not. It would be great if I could. That's the plan.
Just want to test it out.
Yeah, I kind of want to test it out. I want to play around with that for the first time. Because like you said, I've been editing all my own videos. I just feel like every creator comes to a point where like they need to decide if they want to bring in some outside help or not. And I'm just trying to figure that out for myself right now for the first time. Like, is this the time for me to bring on someone else to help me? And it seems like it is. Like, you do content for a while and you realize that, yeah, you have to learn a lot of skills, especially at the beginning. You have to know a lot about kind of all the ins and outs of things that you might not expect. Like you say, I want to do content. Okay, what does that mean? Just making videos, right? It's like, well, you learn about different types of mics and you learn about different types of cameras and you learn about lighting and you learn about editing software and you learn about graphic design for the thumbnails. And there's a lot of stuff you have to learn. And I think after a while, you get better at that stuff, but then you also realize there are people that do this better than I do it. Right? Like, and if you can outsource that to someone who is a full-time, editor or graphic designer or whatever it might be, you can elevate the quality of your content as well and then really focus on the things that you're good at. Like, I would never say that the thing I'm good at is video editing, right? The thing that I feel like I'm good at is, like talking to people and like, speaking different languages. That's what and whether I'm good at it or not, that's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Right? The editing is just like the necessary evil that you have to do to get the videos out.
Man, I think I could say this for a lot of your audience is that I didn't think you were the one editing. Like, those are pretty dang good edit jobs, man.
Oh, thank you.
Like I would have thought you're like maybe 40,000 subscribers ago, you would have your own editor, but you're still editing. That's crazy. I think there are only a couple of YouTubers that get up to your point and then edit. Still, they don't want to let it go, and maybe that's why you're like, I don't want to experiment with it because maybe some part of you doesn't want to let it go. You are you afraid that someone's not gonna maybe copy your style?
Yeah, I think a lot of creators. I think that's like a universal thing. If you want to hire someone else, you're like, is this going to change the content in a way that I don't want, right? And like realistically, if you're the owner of the channel, you can have the videos be any way that you want. Even when you're working with somebody else, you still have the creative final say. And so like, I think that it comes down to, there's a certain element of ego involved where you assume that you're capable of doing things that someone else isn't. And there's a bit of a fallacy in that of like, oh, well, I'm such a good video editor. No one could ever capture the moments like I capture. And it's like, what credentials do I have to show that I'm the best video editor? Like, this
only
is just
one, Kuya Jared.
Yeah, just the one. So I don't know. Like, it's I'm not an authority on this, on when you should bring someone on, if you should bring someone on. I don't even know what that looks like for my channel at this moment because I'm kind of in that transitionary period. And so these are just like thoughts that I have. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know what it'll look like even for me. But yeah.
You mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was off camera or while we were recording, that you're thinking about doing a podcast. Is that what you mentioned? What you mean by you're in a transition period now? What content is that going to be? Is it still going to be related to Filipinos?
So I've already started it. I uploaded the first one. I don't know when this video comes up, but I uploaded the first one on Saturday last week. So I've started that. That's a part of the transition, I suppose. It's not really so much of a transition in that it's not going to change what I'm doing on my Filipino channel. It's just another branch off of a different creative outlet. Mm-hmm. So the podcast is called Boarding Call. And it's a way for me to connect with people who end up living abroad in different countries. And it opens it up to a more international audience. And that these people could be from anywhere and living anywhere. So, the one that I uploaded was a guy from Brazil named Anderson Diaz, who was the first Brazilian to travel to every country in the world. And we talked a little bit about that, and we also honed in on the time he spent in Japan. That was the country that he spent the most time in. And so we talked about some cultural differences between Brazil and Japan. And so when I say it opens it up, it's like, yeah, you can talk about any country. And I just find that stuff really fascinating.
Me too.
Like, I love that too. Like the way that we met, you mentioned, was on my channel. I do interviews on my Filipino channel talking to usually like foreigners. Sometimes they're like half Filipino like you are, who have a passion for the Philippines or who have learned the language or something like that. And I love hearing their stories of like how they ended up learning the language, how they ended up moving to the country, how they view the Philippines versus their home country. I love all that stuff. And this is just an extension of that allows me to talk to people that aren't just going to the Philippines, but they might be going to other countries as well. And it also feels like it's an extension of my interests and my personality. Like, I love the Philippines. It's been such a big part of my life. Like, basically all of my adult life, I've been speaking Tagalog. Like, I learned it when I was 18. I'm now 28. And so
it's crazy.
Like 10 years of my life has been really dedicated to like, having Filipino friends and like learning about the culture and the food and the language. And of course, this year I went to the Philippines for the first time. And I love all that. I was going to ask you about that.
How was your experience like in the Philippines? Like, do you ever think about living there maybe after your experience?
I really like it. I was, I didn't really know exactly what to expect. Like I had the cultural knowledge that I've kind of gleaned over the last, 10 years or so, but I'd never been to the country. And so I knew like that I was missing something, but I wasn't sure what exactly that thing was. And so it was an interesting trip for me. It was familiar and it was new all at the same time.
I'm sure.
Yes. Like, it's interesting to go to a country where you speak the language, but you've never been there. And so, yeah, it was cool. I learned so much. And I was like blown away with how concentrated, not concentrated, but like every corner you go around in the Philippines has a different like story waiting to be told. It feels like there's just adventures everywhere. Like you
rich
could spend,
culture.
Yeah, you could spend like years just in one city, and it feels like you would never see everything. Like, it's like so in depth.
Yeah.
But I had a blast there. That was also kind of a transitionary period for me when I went there, because for the first time I was making more like boots on the ground type of videos, like out in person. Like, I had experimented with that. Yeah, more like vlog style, I guess. Like, I guess that's like the more that's definitely the more like Filipino terminology. Everyone is like blog or blogger. Vlogger ka ba? And like here we don't really say vlogs that much, but like that is essentially what it is. And so I had experimented with that in Canada. I did videos in person, and I did like maybe like 5 or 6 of them. But then when I went to the Philippines, that's what all of the videos were. And so I was learning how to do that at the same time that I was exploring a new country. So that was like a cool combination. And yeah, it was really cool. And I don't know, to answer your question, if I would live there, I don't know exactly. Like, it's a beautiful country, but I'm happy with where I live now. Like, I'm in Vancouver and I like it here. I really like the city. My girlfriend really likes it as well. We're close to my family. Like, there's a lot of benefits that we have from living here. But I see myself like definitely going back to the Philippines, like probably every year, honestly.
Which one's better, Jollibee there or Jollibee here?
Jollibee there. Definitely Jollibee there. They have like some things on the menu that we don't have here.
Exactly.
Like, I had some stuff that I thought was wild at the Jollibee there. I had like Like, you know, they have like the peach pies and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really popular thing. I had that in Canada, and they're good. Like, they're like a dessert. But when I went to the Philippines, they have the same breading of the pie, but inside they have tuna. Have you had that?
No.
It's like a tuna pie. I don't know. It's probably what it's called. Yeah.
With Jollibee?
At Jollibee.
No, I've never had this, but it sounds like something I would try.
And they also have hot dogs with like cheese on top.
Yeah.
And I never had that here. So, I mean, it's got to be better from the country where it's from, right?
Yeah.
Because here, let me say the opposite too. The Tim Hortons, which is, you know, our Canadian like beacon. Like,
no.
It's much better here than it is in the Philippines. Let me just say.
Yeah. You have to be honest. We have to be honest.
I got to be honest. The Jollibee is better there, but the Tim Hortons is better here.
In Canada, yeah.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
So what was was this your first time seeing or meeting Ryan Hale?
Yes.
And you did vlogs with him. How did that come about? That collaboration come about? That's what I'm really interested about.
Yeah, let me. That's kind of a cool story. So like Ryan and I had connected a couple of times. We'd collaborated on a video or two. Like when I started making videos, I was still pretty new to it, but I always wanted to collab with other people because it's like just so much more fun when you can make videos with other people. But when you're like a smaller creator, it is harder sometimes because like to a certain degree you have less to offer. Like when you're reaching out to people, you're like, hey, you want to do this or do that? It's like, well, I'm going to gain more from this than you're going to gain. Yeah. You know, but
tell me about it. I didn't think you were going to reply to me when I reached out to you.
But like, it depends on who you're talking to as well, right? And so like a lot of people just are never going to respond to you. And then there are people that like Ryan, who were like super gracious. Like I reached out to him and said, hey, I want to do a video with you. And maybe we could do this or you could do that. And he said, hey, yeah, let's do it. What? And he even had like an idea. He was working on a video at that time. It was like a competition between him and one of his friends to see who could learn the most Tagalog. So he's like, hey, perfect. You can just teach me Tagalog. Let's do it. So we did this.
He had a lot of gain from you.
I guess in that way, yeah. But I mean, there was a lot of people that he could have reached out to that had more subscribers than I did. But we did this video
you just
together.
Reached out to him through email?
Yeah, I just emailed him.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember
W Ryan.
I was actually down in Wisconsin visiting my sister, and I got this email back from Ryan, and I was like, oh my God, Ryan just responded to me. We're going to do a collaboration. I was like so excited.
Crazy. This guy has millions, right? At least million subscribers.
I think he's at like 500K or something on YouTube.
No way.
He's got 2 million followers on TikTok.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's
up there. He's up there with like anyone that follows language videos knows Ryan Hale.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Shauma and Ryan Hale, yeah.
And especially with like in the genre of Ome TV videos, which is like what I was doing at that point. He's like the king.
One of the goats, yeah.
And so I was like super surprised that he got back to me. But to be honest, like when I say that a lot of people won't respond, I guess that's true. But people were very generous with me on my channel from the beginning. Like I did collaborations with people that they didn't need to do it, but they did it anyway, and it like helped me so much.
One of the ones that I saw that was surprising to me was earlier on. I looked back to your oldest videos, and you got an interview with I don't know how to pronounce it, Ichlal maybe.
Oh yeah.
Ichlal. She's probably has 10 languages under her belt.
Yeah.
And she on Instagram and on YouTube she has a lot of subscribers. So I was like, and that was earlier on in your YouTube career, right? When you got that interview?
That was very early. Yeah. Any video where I'm doing multilingual culture, like content, you can tell that it's early on in my channel because I started to niche down more just into doing videos in Tagalog. So if it's like multilingual, like with Ryan Hale, I mean, we were doing Tagalog based stuff in that video, but I was reaching out to him just to do like, you know, like not necessarily Filipino only culture, but just like language stuff. And with Iklal as well, we spoke like Spanish, we spoke German. We didn't even do any of that. So,
I watched the video. I think you spoke German too.
Yeah.
A little bit.
German and Spanish and English is what we did in that one. And then I did another one with Aljon, who's a Filipino polyglot. And we did Tagalog and Spanish and English, I think. And so, but what was I... So we did this video together where we collaborated, and I posted it on TikTok, and he included it in his YouTube video. And it did really well. Obviously, it has it had Ryan Hale in it. We were collaborating, and it was like amazing for my content as well, like really elevating what I was doing. And he posted in his video, and it got me like a bunch of subscribers, which was awesome. And what did we do after that? I think we were, I don't know if we did any more recording after that, but we were like in contact. Like we just kind of
crazy
became acquaintances through that. And then I reached out to him and was like asking him about like some logistical things with YouTube and with Ome TV, asking for his advice because he's just been doing it way longer than I have, right? And he gave me tons of really good advice. And that's another way that he was generous with me. Like anything I needed, I would just be like, hey, how does this work? How does that work? And he just like would explain it to me. And so it was like super cool. And so we would just chat every once in a while. We would like talk back and forth. And then I came up with the plan to go to the Philippines, where I was like, okay, I got to make this happen. Like if you look at my content early on, one of the big, one of the main topics is like, I've never been to the Philippines, right? That's how all of the conversations would go on Ome TV. Hey, have you been to the Philippines? No, I haven't. Oh my gosh, why haven't you gone? Et cetera, et cetera. And it was always like, I would love to go. Like, of course I would love to go. I've been speaking the language for 10 years. Why wouldn't I want to go? But I don't have the money. Like, it's an expensive flight, and like, I just don't have the cash to do it. And so that was just how the conversation went every time. And then people started commenting, and they're like, well, why don't you just do like a crowdfunding thing? Like, why don't you just raise the money to go on the trip? And I was like, yeah, I could, I guess.
Like
but
a
like
GoFundMe.
Yeah, like a kind of like a GoFundMe type of thing. And I was like, I guess I could do that, but like, I don't know if it's going to be well received or not if I do that. And so at some point I was like, well, this would be a really big opportunity for me to go to the Philippines. I think it would be an important step for my content. And I think the people that are following me would love it. So like, let's just try it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, it's okay. So I did this like it was a PayPal fundraiser. And I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to go to the Philippines. I would love to make content, but I don't have the means to do so. So like, if you have extra income and you want to give me something, great. If you don't, that's fine. My videos are free to watch. You don't have to do it. And
wow.
I think I got like $1,000 or something like that it was a month,
that's
1
half
month.
of it.
Yeah, so I was like, $1,000, like that's crazy. And it was like from I think like 30 of my followers, and so I was like, wow, that's like crazy generous that people would just like just give me the money to go on this trip, like $1,000, like that's insane. And so I was like getting close to the end of the month, and I was trying to figure out like, okay, I have $1,000 now. That isn't enough to go there really, but it would help. Do I have enough of my own money to like bridge that gap and make the trip a possibility? I was kind of in an awkward, like, oh, do I go? Do I not go? And then Ryan hit me up and he said, hey, I saw you have a fundraiser. Like, how much have you earned? And I said, $1,000. And he was like, and I was like, it's really good. Like, I'm happy with that, but I just don't know if it's quite enough. And he's like, well, okay, how much do you need to go on it? And I was like,
no way.
I was like, if I had like another 1,000, it'd be cool. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna give it to you. And
crazy.
I was like, dude. I was like, no. Dude. I was like, dude, don't give me the money. Like, just use that money. Take the money you're gonna give me, and just come with me on the trip. Just use the money for your own like plane fare and stuff, and airfare. And he was like, too late. It's already sent. And it was like, bing on my phone, and he like sent me $1,000.
Wow, I like Ryan even more now. That's crazy.
Oh, it was insane, man. I was like, I don't know if anyone's done something that nice for me like ever. Like, this is insane. And so at that point, it was clear that I had the means to go on the trip, and then he decided that he was going to come for it as well. So then he went a week ahead of me, and we met up there, and then we spent those 3 weeks together, and we made like a bunch of content there together as well. And Dude, it was incredible. So yeah, that's how I met Ryan. Crazy, generous guy.
Oh my God. It's going to be the thumbnail of it's just Ryan's face.
Just Ryan. Yeah, just put him on there. It'll get more views.
Wow. I want to stay on Ryan. Generous, gracious Ryan here. You mentioned earlier that he gave you some advice on content creation. Like if you could pinpoint maybe one or two best advice that he's given you. Can you do that off the top of your head?
Yes. I mean, the one that stuck with me the most, I was talking to him specifically about Ome TV content. And I was kind of like complaining about some stuff like, man, this is really hard. This is difficult. How do you manage this? How do you do this? Like, this is, sometimes this can be frustrating to make videos like this.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I hear you, man. Like, it is. It can be difficult. But, like, the thing you got to keep in mind is that there are so many other crappy jobs that we could be doing. Like it's kind of like, he said it in, like, the nicest way possible of, like, basically, you know, you got to recognize what you got going here. Like, this could, like, we got it made here. Like, you don't think there's going to be any problems if you worked like a 9-to-5 job? Like, this is, you deal with the problems that come up, but ultimately what we get from doing this as a job, as content creators, is so valuable that, like, just, you got to just roll with it, basically, you know?
Whoa.
And that really, like, kind of hit me where I was like, oh, damn, like, you're right. Like, the problems that we have here are small problems. You're right. These are champagne problems, if you will. So that was one of the biggest pieces of advice that really stuck with me.
That's Ryan. Generous and wise. That's crazy.
Generous and wise. Yes.
When
add
did
that to
you?
The thumbnail.
Yeah. When did you mentioned you were having some difficulties with Ome TV content, but now obviously things are going well. I'm hoping. When did you start like treating YouTube more of like? I think it comes to a point where you treat YouTube more of a business than a side project. Are you at that point? And like, when did you start treating it that way? If you are at that point. So
I started it in October 2022, and I was working another job, and I think I worked that job for like 5 months or something like that. So I was like full time at the other job. And that's when I just started doing the content. Maybe it was 4 months of doing content. So at that point, it was very much a side gig. That being said, as soon as I got like any kind of attention doing the content, I was like pretty much full into it. Like, I was doing like 7 TikToks a week and a YouTube video every week. And like just on the weekends and the evenings and stuff. And so I was like, I took it seriously from the beginning, I think. But it was technically my side hustle because I wasn't making any money, for one thing, and I was working another job. But after those 4 months, I went to Colombia. So my girlfriend is from Colombia, and so I had already been there once before, but I ran out of money, and so I had to come back to Canada and like get a regular job so that I could save up to go back. And so I was working this job doing that, and then the YouTube thing just kind of came about. And so when I had enough money to go back to Colombia from working this job, I also continued to do content when I was there. So after that, like, let's say 4-month phase of doing both jobs, I then was only doing YouTube. And that's not to say that YouTube was paying my bills, because I wasn't really making any money, right? Like, I was monetized, but I wasn't really making any money. So I was just living off my savings, and Colombia is significantly cheaper than Canada, right? I'm using Canadian dollars and spending Colombian pesos. So like, I was using that to my advantage. And so I was there for another 4 months. So now I've been doing YouTube for like, let's say 8 months. And I was starting to make a little bit more money. The channel was growing. I also was branching more off into interviews. That was also the same time that I was meeting other creators too. Like, I did my first collaboration with Tagalog Kurt in that time. And people were really enjoying the more like interview type of videos. And so I was leaning into that a little bit. And then once those 4 months were up, my girlfriend and I moved back to Canada, to Vancouver specifically, which in Canada has some of the highest like real estate prices of anywhere. Like it is one of the most expensive places to live in Canada, which in comparison to the Philippines and Colombia is already an expensive country to live in. And so I was like looking at how much money I was making on YouTube, and I was looking at how much rent was going to be, and I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting.
Vancouver, out of all the cities in Canada,
yeah, it's the most expensive.
It's like Vancouver and Toronto.
So when we moved here, I said I got two options here, right? I can just do what I'm doing and also work a regular job in Vancouver, or I can just focus in on content. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to a regular job. So I was like,
back.
I was like, whatever videos I'm making, I'm going to double it. So then I did 2 videos every week. And and so I did that for like quite a few months, because I was like, there's no way that I'm going to do anything except this, because this is the first job that I've actually enjoyed. Like I really like doing this. And so I just doubled down, and it was enough. It worked out. Then the numbers worked out, and I, didn't have to sleep on the streets.
The streets of Vancouver is definitely not streets you want to sleep in.
Now I should also mention at that same time though, like when we moved to Vancouver, just like the month before, is when I released my first beginner's Tagalog course. So I made that, the first one I made while I was in Colombia. And and I didn't know if that was going to be like, if that was going to resonate with people or not. And it ended up, being a resource that a lot of people have used and continue to use. And so that also helped me. It added another stream of income for me to be able to not only have monetization, but also have, a service that I can sell of like, my course that I put a lot of work into it. And so it was nice to see that people were, making use of that as well.
Those are the things that really I didn't think about when I was starting YouTube. It's like, it's not just, you can't just look at YouTube as your main source of income. You can't rely on the AdSense. I mean, it gives good money, but you can do your courses, you can do your sponsorships. What's it called? Affiliate links is another one. I wanted to talk to you about sponsorships, because in my video, the one that you had me on in your channel, I think that's probably your first big sponsor. Correct me if I'm wrong. When you have TapTap as your sponsor, how did that work out? How did you get a collaboration deal with them as a YouTuber?
It was my biggest one, but it wasn't my first one. So I had done other ones before. It's tricky because when you look at YouTube as a whole, there tends to be some typical ways that creators make a living. And the majority, from what I can tell, are making money from brand deals primarily, right? Like the AdSense is great and people use that as supplementary income, but brand deals is where the kind of bread and butter is. That's kind of where people make their living. And at least, and I'm talking about North American creators, I guess, or maybe even you could say English speaking creators, especially, because that is able to tap into an American audience, a Canadian, Australian, British, New Zealand, whatever. That's where they're making a lot of their money. It really depends on where you are geographically, on what opportunities are available to you. So every country kind of has its own benefits and its own limitations. And so the limitation of making content for an audience that isn't primarily English speaking and isn't American as well, to a large degree, is that the brand deals that most people make money on are American companies. And so they're not going to put ads in your videos if all of your followers are from the Philippines or from India or from Malaysia, because they might not even have the means of sending the product to those countries, right? They might not have a location there. And so immediately, if you make Filipino content, it seems like, in my experience, you have less options for people that want to collab with you in terms of brand deals. So that's a challenge. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are benefits to making content for like a Filipino audience or any other country for that matter, but there are limitations, and that's one of them. Your AdSense is also affected by region. So there's a hierarchy of, your RPMs, which is the revenue per mil or the amount of money you make per 1,000 views. That is also dictated by the genre of your videos, but also largely by the country of your followers. And so, as you can imagine, an American audience has a much higher RPM rate than in the Philippines for this, probably for the same reasons of like advertisers are more targeting an audience where the companies are based. So yeah, that's been a challenge from the beginning. And so I've done some brand deals, but I've done not that many, I guess. The Tap Send one was it was a pretty big one, I guess, for the channel. And I actually saw that Tagalog Kurt did a deal with them. And so I followed up with them just off that. And he was like, Tagalog Kurt has been another guy like Ryan Hale.
He's like a great guy.
He's an amazing guy. Like he's also been so instrumental in the content that I make. Like he's been super nice. And like anytime, like we've been building channels relatively at the same time. And like as he like kind of levels up, he just elevates everyone else around him. Like he's not like, oh, I got this deal and
Kurt,
you
if
didn't.
You're watching this,
put him in the thumbnail. Put him in the thumbnail. Right beside Ryan.
They're gonna click on the video and be like, "Wait, this is some Filipino guy and some white Canadian guy. What's going on?"
Kurt or Ryan? What? But like, but he really has been instrumental in what I've been doing, and so I saw that he made a deal with Tap Send and I like a remittance company, and I was like, okay, well, immediately we've narrowed down a company that works with Filipino creators, right? So that in and of itself is a bit rare, right?
Yeah.
So I reached out to them and they were like, oh, you know what? Tagalog Kurt told us all about you.
Wow.
And
like
he was saying,
you didn't know about it?
No, like I talked to him like through DMs, but he talked to them like before that, long before that. So he was like he was promoting me to them without me even knowing it. And I was like, dude, like that's so cool. Like again, so like helpful, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then anyway, that deal ended up happening. But yeah, like it's always a nice thing when creators get that kind of support, when they can find a brand that they like to work with, and it's much more lucrative than other forms of income, and so it helps support creators. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, the whole brand deal. There's so much about YouTube that I didn't realize going into it, and the fact that the opportunities to make money are so drastically different depending where you are geographically was very new information to me.
Yeah, that was surprising to me too. I think you were actually the first one that explained that to me, because we had the same. Whenever I look in YouTube analytics, majority of them are from the Philippines. Right. I'd say probably like 70% from the Philippines, and then I have some from US and then India and all these random countries. So you're now, I think, 2K away from 100K, I believe. Last time I checked,
something like that. That's 3.
That's crazy. That's crazy. When that happens, I can confidently say I have a friend who has the silver play button, and maybe Ryan too, through you. He'll probably be my friend too. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think has been key, like, to your growth? I mean, you've mentioned a lot of them in this episode already, like help from other YouTubers, just grinding through it and doubling down. What do you think has been the key, like from your point of view?
I'm a pretty strong believer in just motivation, intrinsic motivation. So like for me, it's just been liking the content that I make. Like you got to like what you're doing, because it's YouTube, to reference again what Ryan said. I mean, we're very lucky that we get to do this. We're very, very lucky. It is a job like any other job. Like you do, it is a grind sometimes to get videos out, and when you're just starting out as well, you know, and not that I'm immune to this even now, like you make a video, you put a lot of work into it, and then nobody watches it. Like that's tough to mentally overcome, and it's something that you will encounter in growing a YouTube channel. And so you got to like the content, because if you don't, you won't keep doing it. You just won't. You know, it's kind of like learning a language. You know, how do you learn a language? I don't know. Start learning it and don't stop.
Yeah.
So like it's obviously more complicated than that, but it really comes down to like, are you motivated to do it, and do you enjoy your own content? So, you know, I like the videos that I make, and so that makes all the difference for me. The rest just becomes, you know, details, I guess. You just keep going and keep evolving. I think that's a big one as well. Like, you know, you kind of find your voice on YouTube a little bit, and find where you fit in best and what kind of content works the best for you. And you can't do that without doing some experimentation. Like at the beginning, I thought, oh yeah, here we go. I'm just going to make Ome TV videos. Easy. Just do that, right? It's like, yeah, but realistically, there was always something kind of intrinsically within me that was like, I want to do something else, though. Yeah. This isn't necessarily it, and it's okay if that is it. But for me, I was like, I don't know. So then I just was always interested in doing these collaborations, and I remember the very first one that I did. I think this was the first one. It was with a girl named Ako Si Bale, and she's a Canadian who also speaks Tagalog. Her Tagalog is better than mine, I think. She speaks very, very well.
Is she Filipino?
No, she's Canadian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like born and raised Canadian. She's from Toronto. And she's a content creator as well. She I don't know if she's making videos right currently or not, but she, like, you know, like several years ago was like consistently making videos in the Philippines and stuff. And she's really cool. Really another person that was very, very nice to me and very gracious, very generous with her time. So we made this collaboration. And it was just like in a Zoom call, and we just chatted in Tagalog, and I was cutting it up. And I remember cutting it up and going, man, I'm posting these Ome TV videos that are like boom, 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 zoom, zoom, reaction.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's like very clear. And
sound effects.
Sound effects. And now I'm just talking to somebody for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if anyone's going to watch this. It's going to like, I don't know if this is going to be interesting enough for people. I enjoy it. I like it. But I don't know if my audience is going to like it. And it was like my most popular video, I think, when I uploaded it. Like, if people loved it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. But I would have never known that if I didn't just like,
because you were just thinking you like that. You like doing that. You weren't thinking about the views. Yeah.
And that comes back to my main point of like, you got to like what you're doing. And so you just do that, right? You just experiment and say, I want to do this, and let's see where that goes. And then it will guide you. And you just kind of like find your way, and you find what people are interested in and what you're interested in. And I don't know, it's not easy, but it's not complicated. Yeah, I think.
Kind of like this. Like, I enjoy this. That's why I was so nervous when I transitioned to more like of a podcast to be one of my main genres, because it's so off of what I was doing. But I was like, I really enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed having that conversation with Jared. I enjoy having speaking my thoughts out loud. And if people don't like it, I guess it's fine. But I like doing it. So eventually I'm going to get my audience, and then eventually they'll support me.
Absolutely. So is the podcast, is that one of the main areas of content, that one of the main kind of genres?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's going to be. And like I mentioned earlier, I want it to be focused more on Filipino creators if I can. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be exclusive to that, but I want to focus on bringing more light into the Filipino creators, because I feel like there's not a lot of podcasts that do that right now. Yeah. There are a lot of Filipino creators that do podcasts themselves, but not a lot of people bringing up creators specifically. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of celebrities and all those people, but not a lot of people that do the bloggers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that if you look at Filipino content as an entire genre, I think in a lot of ways it's underrepresented in comparison to other countries. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to play one last thing. I know we're almost an hour here. I want to play one game with you.
Okay. Yeah,
it's gonna be called the percentage game. Okay. So it's gonna be a quick one. If you can just give me a percentage rundown.
Okay.
Of your revenue as a content creator.
Okay.
By percentage, like you don't have to give me the actual amount, but you know, just say 50% is from YouTube, and so on.
Okay. Yeah. When it comes to my content, it's like AdSense essentially. So I'm monetized on YouTube and also on Facebook. Mm-hmm. As a Canadian, we're not able to monetize TikTok, so I don't make any money on TikTok. And I don't think Instagram has a way of monetizing short form content. So it's just Facebook and YouTube. And then I sell my course. I came out with a second volume, so now I have two volumes as a part of my beginner's Tagalog like bundle. So it's like a volume 1 and volume 2. So between those three, it's about 50% of my course and 50% like ad revenue, I suppose, between the other two platforms.
Sponsorships, like Tap?
Yeah. So then the sponsorships, it's tricky because I don't have a sponsor every month. So I look at it like I look at my finances on a month-to-month basis and say like, okay, what is the breakdown for this and what is the breakdown for that? So sometimes it's like 0. For a lot of times it's 0, and then sometimes it could be like, you know, a significant portion of that. Mm-hmm. So if I averaged it out at like the end of the year, maybe like 30%, maybe. So let's say 50% the Tagalog course, 20% ad sales, brand deals, and what does that leave? 30% AdSense?
Yeah,
maybe something like that. I don't know.
No, that's it. That's perfect. Yeah. That's one of the things I wanted to do because I want to give an idea with my audience on if they're interested in doing content creator. It's not that easy and it's not that simple. And I want people to see the different percentages. Kuya Jared, I'm older than you, but that's what they call you, so I'm gonna go Kuya Jared. Thank you so much again. Hey, I appreciate pleasure, you. Man. We're gonna have to do a collab when me and the wife come visit her family in British Columbia.
Let's do it, man. I'm here. You know where to find me. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay,
see you,
man.
Bye. Peace.